This is the Global Broadcasting Service, serving remote outposts since 1928.
Hi, everyone. Welcome aboard the Walt Disney World Express monorail.
Caramba, we have something really big for you today.
Welcome, foolish mortals.
Now then, hang on to them hats and glasses, because this here's the wildest ride in the wilderness.
This is the DBC Pod with Phil Schoen and Jason Dodge. Hey everyone, welcome to this week's pod, this show for the week of January 30th, 2023. This week we're going to talk about designing our own perfect Disney nighttime spectacular. It's about time, Phil. I don't think we've done this one yet.
Nope.
Our top 3 tips for managing crowds at the parks. I really wish I had powers to do operations, but it's going to be how we plan around crowds, how to kind of counteract them, I guess. Our takes on Disney planning tips. I put this one together, and it's basically a chance for us to make fun of ourselves. It's overrated in what we actually do and use. So
what do we do that's really not worth the time and effort we put into it?
Exactly. We're going to launch a new DBC engagement for our Disney confessions. We're not going to talk about it this week. This is going to be a topic for next week, but it's going to give you guys a chance to kind of confess things that you have not done at Disney World that you might be embarrassed about. I've got a couple, but I guess we'll tease that for next week.
Yeah.
But first, we got some news, Phil. So what's going on in our Disney World? What are people talking about?
Yeah, so what a lot of people are talking about was this past Friday on January 27th, Disney officially kicked off their 100th celebration. They had pretty much everything was done at Disneyland, although we're starting to see more decorations and things launching around the world. But they had a big live stream from Disneyland that kept going and going and going. I turned it off after about a half hour, but it kept going. They officially opened Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway over there, which more than the ride, people have been talking about the queue. There's just tons of Easter eggs and insider details. I mean, there was like pages of details just from the little because it's like you're walking into a movie theater lobby, but like in Toontown. So it's all like tunified and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But they have like fun things with the condiments in there at like the where you fill up your hot dog and stuff like that. I think my favorite is that there's haggis you can put on your hot dog, but it said it's Glom Gold quality, which Glom Gold was obviously Uncle Scrooge's nemesis and stuff like that. So just little details like that if you're kind of know things, you'll pick up. So I think that was great. A lot of people talking about that. Other big were you gonna say?
No, I was gonna say I'm a little jealous of this because the queue for our Mickeys and Minnie's is not great until you get to like the pre-show story, and then once you get into the where you're loading the vehicles, it's really awesome. I just really wish they pulled that out the rest of the queue.
Yeah, for sure. They did launch 2 new nighttime shows, so it's definitely feeling like the launch of the 50th at Walt Disney World. I think they did a better job with the new shows at least specifically compared to the one at Magic Kingdom. So they launched World of Color 1 over at Disneyland California Adventure, and then at Disneyland Park they launched Wondrous Journeys, and the feedback on that one has been really positive. And one little tip about that is they mentioned it features at least one element from every single Walt Disney Studio animated film. So I think they're up to 63 now. So that was
a couple points to this. Our friend Scott Gustin kind of tweeted out I'm paraphrasing. He wanted to get some happily ever after vibes, and this one really nailed it. He really enjoyed it. Apparently, I didn't see this. Bob Iger liked his tweet about it. I thought that was pretty cool. And then the only other thing with this is if you guys want to watch, I know they're going to put an version of this on Disney Plus somewhere. They're going to stream it somewhere. But if you want to watch it now, Undercover Tourist has a really good copy of it on YouTube. So if you need to see it now, they have a couple different angles. The cameras are all steadied, so you don't get like shaky cam with somebody just kind of holding up a camcorder. So if you want to watch it, they do really good audio and visual and video with it. So a little bit of a tip.
I've seen a few versions. I saw Laughing Place did one out where they actually, because their Fantasmic is in the Rivers of America, so they have like projection technology there. Mm-hmm. So they actually did a view from there because they do a big like water projection screen, and they project all the projections that are on the castle, but on that. So you can like basically get the gist of the show from the Rivers of America, and you still see the fireworks in the background and stuff.
That
like
is really clever.
Yeah. So
I feel like the Imagineers just don't care about Walt Disney World and they just save all the cool stuff for Disneyland.
yeah, I was thinking it'd be great if they did that at Walt Disney World. I mean, even if you had to like, okay, well now there's a new dessert party area to help pay for the cost of the new structure or something like
They
that.
can
But,
afford it.
Something to spread the crowds. But they also added small fountains in front of Sleeping Beauty Castle, just a nice little touch. They had a new wrap on the monorail, which is like glows in rainbow colors and
That's
it
amazing.
shines. It's like really cool. They have new name tags for the cast members do, where instead of listing their hometown, they list their favorite character, which is kind of neat. Obviously, new merchandise and food and stuff. And then the other thing they posted is they have a new music loop in the Esplanade. So that's the area between the two parks at Disneyland. If you've never been there, they're just like 200 feet apart from each other. The entrances facing each other. So the area in the middle, they usually play different music loops. So they started a new one that features key music from the Disney parks, but it's not just Disneyland. There's a lot of stuff from Walt Disney World, like Spaceship Earth and things like, and even songs from Harmonious and stuff like that.
Wow.
So it's kind of interesting that I'm hoping they're going to bring that to Walt Disney World, like once the 50th officially ends, because it would be kind of neat if you have like the same music loop elsewhere, like saying, because this is Disney's 100th, it's not just for one park. But if you're interested, a couple people, and I think I did tweet them out. But they put up either on Spotify or Apple Music, they created playlists of this music loop. So if you want to listen to it at home, there you go. So my question was going to be, and we kind of talked about a little bit of all these elements, what do you hope or happen that you want to see them do at either Magic Kingdom or Walt Disney World? Because I guess the expectation is once the 50th officially ends, we'll start getting 100th stuff at Walt Disney World.
So I've been waiting for you to ask me this question because I'm itching to answer it. And it's part cynicism and it's part hope, right? So the cynicism is like, we have the 50th anniversary for Walt Disney World was a giant flop. And I gotta take a little bit of my harshness away because it was a pandemic, it was COVID and all this other stuff. So, I mean, I get it. They also had a lot of time to recover from that, and I think they just basically kind of gave up. And it feels like the 50th, and we've talked about this, I don't know how many times on this show, so I'm not going to reiterate it at all. But it just felt like it was a merch and food thing rather than kind of celebrating Disney World for 50 years.
Especially the history of the park, other than like that vault collection or something, there wasn't too much.
That was a good start, right? There was some really cool stuff, but then it kind of stopped there, and the parks are basically the same. I mean, they have some gold statues, and that's basically it. So my hope, right? So this is where hope springs eternal. I'm channeling Matt Pato a little bit with his sunshine that he kind of holds around all the time. Is that I think a lot of the stuff that they wanted to add, they've just been saving for the 100th at this point, right? I don't think they're going to try to get people to go down to Disney World based on the 100th celebration. I mean, they might have some extra stuff, but I think they're booked up enough, and they have the other promotions that are going to get people there regardless. But I think the specialness of the 100th is going to kind of bleed. I think they're just waiting for Disney World's 50th to kind of just wrap up so they can kind of sweep it under the rug.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the stuff they had planned for the 50th is going to be pushed for the 100th. And I think it'd be really cool, especially since we're going to have Happily Ever After come back. And we're going to have, we saw some really cool projections at Disneyland on Main Street. And I think you were commenting on Discord as well that you hope that we get some really good, because those are really good, right? They lessons, I thought.
They felt like they added to what was being projected on the castle, and that if you were looking at them, you're still getting kind of the story or whatever is right. Versus for Enchantment, it just seemed like kind of random colors and shapes and stuff like that.
So what do I expect to happen? I expect some fancy parades, not a new parade, but like a plussed parade. I expect the nighttime spectaculars to really hit home quite a bit. I expect extended hours and your regular merch and all this other stuff. But I really expect the whole park, by the time this is in full swing, that the park is just going to be glowing and gorgeous and clean and like well maintained. I think they're taking this moment to kind of hit a reset.
Yeah,
like a lot of the a lot of the little things that we got, like we're not charging for parking anymore and all this other stuff. I think we're going to see a slow rollout so that the 100th feels like we're giving you things. So all the little things that they might have if the 100th wasn't coming up, probably would have implemented already. I hope that they're going to start rolling those out to make the 100th feel like special. What are you expecting to happen?
I would say similar. I definitely, like I already mentioned, I hope that music loop comes here, and I hope there's just more of that connective tissue, for lack of a better word, between the parks. Because, like I said, it is a celebration of the whole company.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe we'll get the monorail wrap as well. And no word on if the cast members at Walt Disney World are going to get the updated tags and stuff, just to kind of make it feel like it's one big celebration versus separate celebrations. But otherwise, yeah, similar things. Hopefully some more pixie dust type things, whether it's at resorts or everywhere where cast members can give out little things and stuff like that. Like you said, just more celebrating that what's been accomplished and giving back to the guests that sort of helped enable this. And hopefully they also agree with the union and the cast members get some more money. That'd be nice.
That'd be very nice. I think it's time for Disney to start giving back after taking so much over the last decade or so.
Yeah.
So we'll see. All
right. Speaking of Walt Disney World and new stuff, they did announce that Rodeo Roundup Barbecue will open on March 23rd. And also since then, the menu has come out, and they haven't given out pricing or when ADRs will open yet, but they did have the menu, and it will be served family style, with a lot of, different appetizers, salads, and, big bucket full of various types of barbecue meats and stuff like that. A lot of them have sort of funny names playing off Toy Story things. Like there's, it's not just like, here's your sausage. There's a sausage in my boot type things.
Mm-hmm.
The oddest one I see is Evil Doctor Smoked Ribs, so Evil Doctor was ham. So it's Evil Doctor Pork Chop. So I'm like, are we supposed to be that we're eating ham, that these are his pork chop, or is he serving others? So it's a cannibal. Like, I don't know. Like, I guess they're just like, oh, pig, let's name it after him. But I'm like, that's kind of weird. So my question to you is, now that you've seen the menu, now that you've kind of seen all about it and kind of what it is this going to be a priority ADR for you to make for your next trip?
No. I mean, I would love to, but like, I am changing how I do ADRs with my family. So maybe spend less at restaurants, and maybe pick one or two ADRs or sit down restaurants through a week rather than doing one every single day. So we'll see. I mean, I love barbecue. My wife's a vegetarian, so it depends on whether the plant-based options.
They do have 3 plant-based options. Yep. It's like an Impossible
cauliflower,
meat thing,
right?
And there's an Impossible meat like rib type thing, and I think there's a bratwurst in quotes, and the cauliflower.
So I mean,
and a number of the sides and stuff too are vegan or vegetarians.
Yep. So I mean, is this super duper like exciting me? No. I mean, the decor is going to be kind of fun and everything else like that, but I don't think I'm like primed up, ready to go for this type of thing. Especially with young kids, I don't know how much they're going to eat, and I think isn't it like this is not a prefix menu, is it? Or is it?
Yeah, it's family style, so it's all you can eat. So they haven't released pricing, but it's structured to be like a pay one price. So
it's probably gonna be like $50 or $60. Like,
there's no characters, but probably close to that at least. Yeah.
I mean, let's see, what is Be Our Guest? That's between $50 and $60 in that frame rate, and that's varied. That's got one character in the
and it's in the cast. I mean, I would think it would be a little less than that, but I'm sure it's going to be at least 45 or something.
So take, I don't know, 10, 15% off that number. You might get the barbecue. I don't know if this is do the math, a $200 meal for me.
Right.
I'm not excited to spend $200 in barbecue in this place. So it is what it is.
Yeah, I feel similar, especially with now 2 kids being Disney adults and having to pay the $40 instead of or $45 instead of the $25 or whatever. My wife doesn't eat beef or pork, so she could have the chicken, but it's kind of the same thing where I'm like, some of the sides and stuff sound good. So if this was more a la carte, I think I'd be more interested, but obviously they know a lot of people want to get in there and see the decor and stuff like that. So they need to get the money per table, but so I don't know.
I don't like the whole
good, but yeah. I was going to say, it looks pretty good, but it's not a priority for us based on this pricing structure.
I'm getting tired of everything being a prefix menu and just charging me like $40. I'm like, how can I just go in and spend like $25 a plate, not $40 a plate, please?
Yeah, I didn't add it to the news, but they did also announce California Grill currently is doing like their special menu for the 50th. They announced when the 50th ends, it'll just be a different special menu, same thing, a prefix, same price and everything like that, where that used to be one of our absolute favorites to go because we get a bunch of like flatbreads and sushi and share it and stuff like that. But I can't pay like $90 for my each of my kids to go there,
Yeah.
like, and not eat. It's just, I don't know. Yeah,
Too much.
same thing. I'm kind of tired of those. And last bit of news, Tron, they announced that, unsurprisingly, it will use a virtual queue, and it will be an individual Lightning Lane attraction. They haven't said if, because now this is a virtual queue, does that mean the Cosmic Rewind's going away, or if they'll both still have virtual queues? And they also haven't said if Seven Dwarfs will remain as an individual Lightning Lane as well, or if that will join Genie Plus. So we still have to see that, but at least we know for Tron how it'll be. I think that's what everybody was expecting.
So my thing is, why would Cosmic Rewind? Why would this affect whether or not that is a virtual queue? A lot of people, I've heard this opinion in a couple other different places. Like, why not have 10 virtual queues?
Yeah, I just don't know how the systems are. Can it handle more than one? If it can, then
that's true. Right? Disney IT might prevent you from doing
but
that.
Yeah, I mean, theoretically, they are at different parks. If they were both at the same park, I would think
Yes.
they would only do one. But yeah, being at different parks, they certainly could still have both.
What's your opinion on a virtual queue now that you've used it? Do you like it for like the new mainliners that are coming into parks?
So in general, I actually like it. I think it works well for Cosmic Rewind, especially because unless it goes down or something, as long as you're trying, you're pretty much guaranteed to get one by the 1 o'clock one. It was more nerve-wracking when it was Rise, when there was a solid chance you might not get on that day. And I do kind of feel for people that come down for their, once every couple year trip. And if they don't get on, they don't get on. I mean, I guess you can suck it up and pay the individual Lightning Lane, but I generally like them rather than having to wait in like a 2 to 3 hour line.
Yeah.
But I can also understand the frustration, especially when it was like with Rise. Like I saw people for Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway at Disneyland, it's using that. And it was day one and it ran out in like seconds and people were complaining. I mean, obviously that's day one. It's going to go fast, but like, it's great when you get one, because then you don't have to wait in a 3 hour line, but it can be frustrating if you don't.
I would love to be able to say, like, for example, let's fast forward 2 years from now. We've got Tiana, Tron, and My Train, 3 main headliners. People are going to be like loving to get on.
Yeah.
I would love all 3 to have virtual queues, but I also understand for people that don't do Disney like the way we do, like, okay, what's the difference between a Lightning Lane, an individual Lightning, a virtual queue, and that's just too much, right?
Yeah.
So I appreciate the virtual queue type stuff, but you can't tack it on to all the other nonsense that Disney's having you do in the parks. Less phone type stuff, please.
Yeah, and the other thing is you have to keep in mind is if people aren't standing in the physical queue, they're going to be elsewhere, so it adds to the length of other lines and stuff like that. I think Magic Kingdom can handle it fine because there's enough attractions, but like you couldn't have 3 virtual queues in Hollywood Studios or something like that because there's just not enough.
There's not enough attractions for sure. Yeah. Well, then again, if there's enough headliners that are being built over the next couple of years,
right? Well, yes.
Like, let's say, okay, you have Rise. Let's say they build 2 other e-ticket attractions that require. So now, all of a sudden, you probably got like maybe 5 more attractions if they're building that many.
Well, and hopefully they build 2 more e-tickets and a couple C-tickets. And yes, yes, that's the thing.
So we'll see.
A little bit more about Tron. They did also announce that it will be using a locker system that you will be required to put everything in. 2-sided locker, so it should function like it does at Velocicoaster over at Universal. If anyone has ever done it, you'll be able to use your Magic Band or Magic Band Plus to unlock and lock the locker, or they'll give you like a card. And on the actual ride vehicles, there's a small, tiny compartment that you can fit like cell phones and stuff like that, so you don't have to leave
wallet if you don't want to leave that in the locker type
exactly stuff like that. But any purse or backpack or something will have to go in the lockers.
I hope this is a mainstay of like every major attraction. I mean, obviously the roller coasters, right? Like I'm always paranoid that my backpack's going to fall out. So I'm like holding it with one hand. I can't put my hands up, all this other type of stuff. So I love this idea.
Yeah, I usually like on a, whatever, Space Mountain or whatever, I usually put my leg through one of the straps on the bag or something like that. So even if it flies off, it'll, I guess, just pull my leg with it or whatever. But and then the last bit, they did announce that cast member previews, those will run from February 6th through March 3rd. Booking for those opened up on January 30th. So just today for the little behind the scenes. And congrats to former guests of our shows. Both Julie and Zach both got, I think, multiple dates. So they'll be riding a couple times over the next month. So
I think
very happy for them.
Day one preview, right? Like
I think he's early. Yeah, I don't know if it was February 6th. It might be. He's very early. Yeah.
So good for him. So if you want to find out what it is you don't care about, well, can you really spoil Tron? I mean, it's been an attraction elsewhere.
Yeah, it's been open. I mean, if you want to see what it is, and there's only so much. There's not like a huge storyline or anything like that.
Anyway, come on to Discord and ask Zach all your questions once he gets on. He'll be more than happy to answer whatever you want.
And that does it for the news. So, Jason, this was your idea for our take. So you want to kick it off?
Yes. So I was trying to think. We've done overrated, underrated, like movies and dining and blah 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 blah. But let's take it more personal and kind of give an inward look on our takes on Disney planning tips and tricks. Now we can open this up to things you've heard other people do, but I think we've used every single tip or trick that's in the book at one point or another, whether we kept doing it or or stopped doing it a long time ago. So these are just basically tips that we think that are really good, or maybe you can do them, but you don't really need to do them, type of thing.
Yep.
That's how I put overrated. It's like you don't really need to do this. This doesn't do anything for you.
Yep.
So I'll start with overrated, and it's something that's near and dear to both of our hearts. Creating spreadsheets is completely overrated for Disney planning, at least for this day and age with the way Genie Plus works and all this other type of stuff. I never use my spreadsheet when I'm on property. It's mostly for me a way to manage the things I'm doing. So, creating a nice spreadsheet with like, Gantt charts and times and all these increments, like you don't need that. Like a list of like, here are the restaurants I want to get, here are the days of the parks I'm going to that day. And you just make a list of things that you want to do. You don't need a spreadsheet. So I think that's overrated. Now, a lot of people love showing off their spreadsheets. I love showing off my spreadsheet. I spend more time making it look good than anything else. But you don't need it, and it's overrated, I think. But I'll never stop doing it. But I think it's overrated. What's your overrated planning tip or trick?
Yeah. So my overrated is sort of the contrast to creating a spreadsheet or something like that, which I feel is editable. So as long as like, well, you're doing your planning and you can move things around, that's great. I said anything that's uneditable. So when I see people make these like fancy binders and they write everything out, and I'm just like, okay, well, what do you do then when you change plans? You just like crumple it up and throw out or something. And I would say I could relate that to my experience because I still think there's value in using a spreadsheet to kind of map out your days and stuff. But I always print it out before the trip comes, and I never use it because, again, it's
I do the same
ineditable. So it's like I have it, but I don't use it. So that's what I'm saying. Anything that is printed out or handwritten or something like that you really can't modify just because it looks real pretty and it kind of helps you.
I've seen these people that are both planning the Disney trip and they're like ultra scrapbook / crafty people, right? They bedazzle the covers and they make it look great. Look, I appreciate it because I'm the one that like loves staring at, my ADR, like in the back of the day, 180 day ADR, 60-day Fast Pass Plus. And you're just kind of doing this. I would have like weekly meetings with like my wife and my mother when she had gone with us last time, kind of just crafting. Okay, do you want to switch our park day from here before there's reservations, right? You can just do whatever. So there's a lot more freedom in like changing things up on a Thursday night because what if it looks like this? So I get loving the anticipation. It's just basically another memento of your trip. So,
and I was
it's overrated.
I almost cheated for this one. I almost wrote nothing because it was like, if it works for you, then great. Like there's nothing that's really overrated. But yeah, I think it's fun. Like if it's going to become your scrapbook at the end, then great. But just, I don't know. Sometimes I see people spend a lot of time writing things out, and I'm like, you're 6 months away from your trip that you're just going to be like crossing things off.
Well, I mean, just the same thing. I think spreadsheets are overrated. Yet I'm going to continue doing them because I enjoy doing them. Right.
Exactly.
So, but I know that it's not really helping me in my trip. Okay, so we'll go to properly rated things. I think this is properly rated by a lot of people, but a lot of people fight it. Right? They might think. I think if anything, people would say this is overrated, but I think this is properly rated by Disney files out there. Planning out where and what you want to eat 60 days in advance, 7 days or 24 hours before you actually get down the meal. You need to plan out where you're going to eat, and it's going to save you so much misery. Even if the plan is, I have no idea where I want to eat, but I'm okay with that being up in the air, but knowing that you're going to have to pick something is enough planning so you can create the expectations of how your day is going to go. And even if you don't have an ADR for it or whatever, just plan out where you want to eat, what you want to try to target for something, because that is going to ruin a day if you're not planning out your meals properly. Unless you don't care where you eat and you want to pick up whatever, it doesn't make a difference because now you don't care. But if you do have some semblance of care, it's properly rated. Like there's people out there that spend all their time making sure where they're going to eat is all set in stone, or they have 3 different options. They go through the whole process. It was great listening to Matt go through his whole pre-planning phase for his December trip of like, I've got these 4 different places where I want to eat. He's moving things around. It saves you a lot of headache.
Yep.
You're properly rated.
So my properly rated, and this is what if somebody asks like, well, what tips do you have? Like, this is the number one tip I give people. So I guess that's why I think it's properly rated.
Mm-hmm.
But it's basically have every family member or every member that's in your group going down, pick 1 or 2 must dos for each person. And then you plan around those. And so this, I think, ties into your thing because that could be a dining location. Like, okay, what's the one meal you really, really want to do? Okay, so now we have our 3 or 4 that we want to do. What are the attractions? We have our 3 or 4 attractions we want to do. And you kind of like spreadsheet, pen, whatever them, into your days. And you kind of fit everything else in around that because the last thing you want to do is come back and have somebody say, oh, but I really wanted to do this. And it's like, oh, well, you didn't say anything, or like, I didn't know that, or we didn't fit it in. We planned it for our last day and then it rained out, or, that sort of thing. So really try to focus on those because there's no way you're going to do everything. So really try to pick the couple things that are important to everybody.
Challenge
and make sure
accepted.
You get those
I will
down.
do everything. No, well, here's a follow-up question though, because now you've got 3 kids. They're at different ages. At what point were they able to give you a must-do? How old were they when you kind of started? It was actually good.
I'd say pretty young. Trying to think, like, I'd say 5 or so. They can really kind of like they have enough experience, and I think before that you can kind of I would more tease it out of them, like, okay, who's your favorite character or something like that sort of thing, and like, okay, let's make sure we meet them or something like that. Probably around 5, 6 or so. I think then they kind of remember things and like, okay, I want to do this ride or something like that. Maybe a little older for dining.
My youngest daughter, who just turned 5, she didn't remember anything, and I kept trying to get her excited about different things, and she was kind of like just level keel about everything, which was interesting. My son was just basically, I want to go Space Mountain. I'm like, all right, that's fine. I mean, we're going to do that anyway, but we'll get there. And I think all my kids, just because we haven't gone on our big trip since they were, because my oldest is about to turn 10. And our last big trip was 2019, where we were actually able to do a lot of stuff. And she was 8 at that time. So it was kind of, or no, she was 9. It was kind of tough to kind of, I think, remember a lot of stuff. So I after you told me that, this is how I do things, this is how we kind of predict, because we're going through our planning for our last trips. I went to my kids and asked them what they wanted to do, and they just start spouting out like all the e-ticket attractions. We want to do this one and this one. I'm like, okay, but we're going to do that anyway. That's good. So nothing special.
So sometimes it's like, we want to go on Cosmic Rewind. It's like, well, that's obviously a key of this trip. But other things come out. Like my son said he really wanted to do the Speedway or something like that, which is something that like we could skip. We don't have to do that, but because he said he wanted to do it, we did it. That sort of thing. So
I get a sense whatever our next trip is, my kids are going to now be like Disney pros at least a little bit, and able to like, it's not a distant memory, a pre-COVID memory now. It's kind of a part of the, I don't know, family zeitgeist, I guess, at this point. It's a mainstay. So that's a good one. Okay, so my underrated tips and tricks, and I can't stress like how underrated this is. People don't know this exists, and they're like, wow, that's really a thing. And it's an ADR finder. I give props to Touring Plans. They have one. I think it's free for like 1, and if you buy the service, you can get 2 searchers. It basically all it does is it pings the website, the Disney website, and when they find an available time slot, so you could put it for like lunch or dinner or at 6:30, or a range of dates. When they find something that fits your filters, it will send you a text message and I believe an email too with a link. And it brings you right to the website to go and then hit click book. It won't book it for you.
Right.
But if your phone's set up where you click the link, it goes to your web browser, not MDE. And make sure you're logged in with your web browser. And you just goes right up. You just have to hit a button and you book that ADR.
Yep.
I use it every single trip. And there's only a couple that it won't get.
Yeah.
And because there's none available ever. But people, I was like, well, the worry about like food reservations and waking up and doing all this other stuff, or we were talking a couple weeks ago. I met like a family on New Year's Eve that was going to do their once in a lifetime $10,000 like extravaganza trip type of thing. And I'm like, well, if you want to eat certain places, you got to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning if you don't get it. And then there's other tools to help you get those things, so you don't panic if you don't get those. there's plenty of times where people, even in our Discord, panic that they can't get an ADR. So, well, have you tried doing this? There's other ones, like I think, was it mouse dining?
Yeah, there's Mouseka Pros. Mouse dining. There's a few.
There's a bunch.
And some work better than others. I've had mixed results with it, but it definitely helps. I know some people that have had great results on our Discord bench, and they don't even bother getting up at 6 a.m. anymore. They're like, I'm just going to do the service, and it'll work for 95% of them, and it's great. I definitely say it works definitely because you have the option. Some are email only, some are email, or you can opt for the text. Definitely do the text. It's a lot quicker than waiting for the email. And the other thing that's frustrating is with the Disney, it kind of keeps logging you out of the system. So if you're like in the mode of, I'm hoping I'm getting some of these soon, just kind of periodically log into the webpage so that you're like logged in. So that always got frustrating a couple of times because I'd get like the notification, I'd go there and I'd have to like re-log in. And by the time I'd get through, it'd be like, oh, it's gone. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Yep. I've been in that boat too.
My underrated is sort of similar, using an external service, but it's using Thrill data for tracking availability of Genie Plus and wait times. Just, I probably can overdo it. But I think, just having some idea of sort of like, well, which are the popular Genie Pluses? Which are the wait times that build? Which are the lightning lanes that go the quickest? Just to have some idea of which to go for. What, like, don't go in and be like, oh, I'll just get a lightning lane for it. Like, well, they'll all be gone. So I think when you show that to some people, they get really like, whoa, okay, this is available. Like, yeah. So I think it's a little underrated because it's out there. You might as well try to use it. But again, you can get caught in the weeds on it.
This is tough to do in a, audio medium. And if you're watching on YouTube, we're not pulling up charts. Like we're not doing anything, but kind of like a mini lesson on how to use this information. This website is purely functional. There's no like really, really pretty UI. It's basically Excel spreadsheets and numbers and stuff like that they spit out at you. And the way you can to kind of go over what Phil said was you could go on there, and how I do it is I look at the behavior of the parks and plan accordingly. Like I see what wait times you can go for all the major all the attractions and see what their wait times are throughout the day. So you can see, oh, these rides, I really want to do these. I either go really early in the morning or I could go really late in the day, and the wait time is very minimal. But like if I go at like 1 o'clock, it's through the roof type of thing. Two, you can use this if you're using Genie Plus and you want to plan your strategy for either flowing from ride to ride or stacking for later, you can see which attractions go fast, right? So this is what Phil and I did with either Jungle Cruise at Magic Kingdom, because that was the primo lightning lane to grab. You can see that it goes out within the first couple minutes of the day. And so if you're about to use Genie Plus for the first time and you're getting nervous, you don't know how to use it, and you're getting all anxious about it, go onto Thrill Data, pull up the park, and just look at some historical data for Genie Plus, and it'll show you that this is the attraction that goes first. This is the attraction that usually goes second, third, and these are the ones that are available throughout the whole day that you don't have to panic get, right? Yep. So at least at this point, if you're going to wake up at 7 o'clock and you want to do it the right way, you might not get it. You might be too slow, right? That's happened to me plenty of times. But at least you know what to do, and you're not just staring at it and you're just going, well, I have no idea what to do. And you just pick, Mickey's PhilharMagic as your first lane of the day or something else like that.
Yeah, it definitely can help with your 7 a.m. strategy, and it can also let you know, like, oh, well, how quickly do the individual lightning lanes for an attraction sell out, and be like, oh, they actually last for a while, so I don't really need to. Let's focus on the Genie Plus one, and then I can come back to that one or whatever. Yep. It kind of lets you know where to focus at 7 a.m.
And if any of our listeners out there really want to dive deep and learn how to do this, hop into Discord. I'd be more than happy to go over strategies and stuff like that in a written form and kind of walk you through it. But those are our takes for Disney planning tips and tricks. If you've got any of yours that you think are overrated or underrated, or ones that you want to poke fun at us for thinking that are overrated that we didn't mention, please hop into Discord and all of our social media and let us know. And where can they find us?
Yeah, so obviously, as Jason mentioned, our Discord channel is great back and forth and great for sharing tips. But also, you can tweet it at us, post on Instagram, Facebook, or comment on our YouTube channel. For everything, we are all at the DBC Pod, and no change to the Disney Comeback Index. And we did have a new subscriber to our YouTube channel, Matt Fay. Thanks for subscribing.
Welcome. Okay, so this week's topic, you came up. We mentioned this at the top of the show: designing our perfect Disney nighttime spectacular. So why don't you tell us how we're going to do this and why this popped into your head as an idea?
Yeah. So it popped in my head after seeing Wondrous Journeys and kind of seeing like, well, what works and what doesn't. And it also kind of popped into my head after seeing Wondrous Journeys uh, use songs that I feel like they might be overusing. It feels like every nighttime show now uses Go the Distance or Out There or some of the Moana stuff that, they're great songs, but it's kind of like, is it feeling like a crutch a little bit for the people that are putting everything together? So I started thinking, well, what makes a nighttime? Why did Happily Ever After work, but Enchantment didn't, and that sort of thing? Why does Wondrous Journeys work and Enchantment didn't? I guess that's my first question is, Jason, for you, for these nighttime shows, what do you think goes into making a great nighttime show, and kind of how would you go about building out one, or what elements would you make sure would go in there?
So to me, a nighttime spectacular at Disney World.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So
We're
at a
definitely,
park,
we're specifically talking about
right.
at a Disney park.
Each one of the parks has its own, nature, right? Its own personality, right? Magic Kingdom is a different vibe than Hollywood Studios, and Epcot obviously is different from everything else. And Animal Kingdom doesn't have one. So, but like, I think each park, the nighttime spectacular for that park has to represent the vibe and the fulfillment of that park. And this is why Happily Ever After was so great for the Magic Kingdom, because you just spent all day at the Magic Kingdom seeing different fairy tales, different adventures. You've gone through pirates and seen the bad pirates, and you watched Captain Jack kind of go through some things, or the funniness of the Jungle Cruise, or you've met princesses, and it's a story, it's a journey, and it's a happily ever after. It's a storybook, right? Every Disney movie basically ends with a happily ever after at the end of it, for the most part. And so, like, we want to capture our whole journey for the day, I think. So each nighttime spectacular has to be the anthem, as they kind of use the words when they mentioned happy ever after is coming back. And I think Happy Ever After is the perfect example. Like, you could do the fireworks. You need fireworks. You need a big spectacle. So I'm not like hung up that you need to have a giant fireworks show and lasers and projections. Those are all great things to develop the spectacle, whatever medium you need to do to say that. So it needs to make sure it needs to be like the end cap of the day. Like for Hollywood Studios, while Fantasmic is a great show, it doesn't, for me personally, it doesn't capstone the day at Hollywood Studios. But it's an amazing experience. So, but it doesn't say like this is who we are at Hollywood Studios and everything else. It's just another phenomenal type of show. And I think they were trying to do that a little bit with the Chinese theater projections from many years ago type of thing, but it was kind of like a simpler show type of thing. So for you, what do you think it would make a great time night? Is it more of a feeling, or is it more of like it needs to have specific like physical elements?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's the feeling that you get while you're watching it, but I think some of that for me it comes from the message they're conveying and the story that they're using to convey that message. And I think, Happily Ever After had that sort of beginning, middle, and end. It had it through that narration. You had that with Illuminations at Epcot. You even had that, at Rivers of Light in Animal Kingdom with the whole concept of we are one and that sort of thing. And you saw that with Wondrous Journeys. It told the story of the journey through the animation. It started out with, the earlier animated films going through the newer ones, but you had kind of the moment of doubt that some of the characters had. It wasn't necessarily bad guys. It was more self-doubt. And how do you go through that and sort of
perseverance,
and it builds to that crescendo at the end. So I think you have to, because that carries you on that emotional journey through the show. Otherwise it's just a bunch of clips and it's like, yeah, this is nice, but it doesn't really resonate with you. So to me, that kind of that message you have, ideally it does fit the park, why Illuminations worked in Epcot and that sort of thing. And then you have that story that conveys that message. So to me, that's the key element.
Yeah, I think which is one of the reasons why Disney's Enchantment failed, because there was no story. It's like they started singing a song. I'm like, okay. And there's a couple moments at the end where they go back to some of the lyrics that are really nice lyrics, right? I know as I was putting together some of my family videos and I put it to the lyrics of Enchantment, and there's some good moments that you can kind of put your memories to, but like it doesn't match the journey of that park. It's like you are the magic. I'm like, no, this park is the magic,
Yeah.
and I'm just living in it. I'm not what makes it go, right? I'm a bystander to that, or I participate, but I'm not the magic. It's the cast members. It's the, the rides, the attractions, the sights, and the smells. I mean, we need to capture that.
Yeah.
And this is what I'm hoping for EPCOT's whatever their eventual permanent show is going to be.
Yep.
And, when you think of EPCOT right now, what do you think of? You think of the World Showcase, right? You think of cultures and people and food and art and imagination and just things that you experience throughout the world. Like the rest of the park outside of World Showcase is basically a construction pit, or you've got a roller coaster and you've got a lot of other stuff that needs to be updated on the other side of the park or holds some nostalgic value or whatever, right? There's no unifying theme yet. I think they're trying to get to that. So I hope, like for EPCOT, I like where Harmonious was going. I love that show. It had failures of like you can't watch it all. You have to be in specific spots.
Yeah.
And if you're not in a specific spot, you're behind somebody's shoulder and you can't really see anything. So I would love them having some kind of lighting package on each one of the countries that lights up at different portions of it and highlights, France and highlights Morocco and highlights Mexico, et cetera, all the way around. And, so if I'm watching from Mexico, I can see, France light up all the way from the other side. And it's got, you got some cool stuff going off, fireworks in the middle, but like, I think it needs to encompass all the different buildings and stuff like that. I think that would be really awesome. So as you don't have to be a specific spot to, view it. Like it's just all around you, I think. And I think that they have the space for it. And I think it'd be really awesome if they do something like that. So that's what I'm hoping EPCOT is. And it doesn't necessarily have to be, okay, well, let's just take all the different songs from all of our IP and change the language of them and stuff like that. That's kind of, to me, that's easy.
Yeah.
I didn't mind it either. It was nice, but like, I think they can come up with something better.
Yeah.
For,
well, I think one element that was missing from Harmonious, and this is something that I think the best of the shows have, is they do have an original song that's for it that you associate with the show.
Mm-hmm.
And it helps with that message. It helps explain to you whether it's the song or a narrator as well along with it, whether it's Jiminy Cricket or whoever. And I felt like that was missing from Harmonious. If you had that really powerful original song and maybe some narration that explained like, okay, well, what is the purpose of what you're seeing? It's that we're all connected through song, through the different countries and stuff like that, which it was there, but it wasn't really explained. And I think that made it fall a little flat for a lot of people. So I think that's something that's key to, is having that original song that helps convey the message.
Well, let me ask you this, since you're an Epcotian, do you think that message has to be a song, or can it be more narration than song put to music? Obviously you need music and everything else, but does it need to be like a happily ever after like song that's a crescendo and it's an anthem, or can it be more like a story that somebody's telling you?
I think the best ones feed off each other. Like Happily Ever After had both, right? It had the narrator and the song. Illuminations didn't really have. It had, We Go On, which is amazing, and kind of conveys the message that they're showing. But it wasn't like a storytelling song necessarily. But you had that narrator that started at the beginning and kind of said, "Why are we gathering around the fire?" and stuff like that. So I think you can have both, but I think when they work together is when it's most powerful.
So you need both, you think?
I think to really elevate it to the top tier type show, I think you need both.
Okay. Do you for Epcot specifically, do you think, okay, so if we're going to put a balance of, like, for example, Happily Ever After is mostly song with some narration. Yeah. Do you think Epcot needs to have the same kind of ratio of song to narration, or do you think Epcot has a space for potentially a lot more narration with some song?
I think it could be that. I mean, they talked about when they were going to redo Spaceship Earth, it was going to become more about storytelling. So I think you could almost take that element and translate it into that, like really build up, like, we are at the end of our day, we are gathering around the camp, like when you go camping and you're all gathered around that campfire and singing songs and things like that, like telling stories and stuff like that. I think it could be that. And then you have that original song that undertows everything, that kind of reinforces the message. But I don't think that song needs to be as explicit like Happily Ever After is. I think it could be more narration and you have the song that reinforces.
I mean, I think you can have whatever form of spectacle it is, a light show, fireworks, whatever, in the center, and then but a narrator telling the story of each one of the countries, and
Mhm.
then in between having like a song for that country's represents their culture,
Yeah.
their accomplishments or whatever you might want to do, and then it dips down to more narration. It just there's a lovely storytelling that could be done. So it's like story time at Epcot, but in a
Yeah.
very, very grand way. I think that would be excellent,
Yeah.
and kind of respect everybody's like culture that's in there rather than just like, haha, we just made this song in your language, don't you love it, and go on. I mean, people do appreciate hearing
Yeah.
songs in their own language. I'm not going to downplay that, but I want to say it's cheap because it's easy. It's just sitting there. Like, we'll just have all your favorite songs in different languages. And that's just, it's part of the world type of thing.
Yeah.
So,
And there's a lot of universal stories, right? That just
Mhm.
have different forms that they take in each country. So you could almost do that. Like, okay, here's this story and the form it takes in China, or the form it takes in the UK, or the form it takes in Italy, or something like that, and kind of have it everybody add, for lack of a better term, their own flavor to it.
No, I definitely like that for sure. So that being said, does Animal Kingdom, you think, need a nighttime spectacular? Because I never watched the what are they called? Beacon of Magic or whatever it
Yep.
was for Animal Kingdom, where the Tree of Life kind of lights up. I actually really like that. Not that many people were crowded around the center of it, but
Yep.
like had its own little thing, and that was a really nice capstone. But you can't do that every single night because the park closes too early. Do you think Animal Kingdom needs a nighttime spectacular?
I think if they want to make it a park that's open later, you do need something like, I think we've talked about, you kind of need that thing that's keeping you there, that appointment that you have later in the day. I thought Rivers of Light was great. I know not everybody loved it, but I think you could do an amped up version of that makes it a little bit more spectacular, for lack of a better word. But no, I think you need that thing, like, why, and I mean, even going back to the history of the parks, like Walt viewed it like the fireworks was his like thank you to everybody who came to the park that day, like their parting gift. So I think that's, you're there for the day, and this is sort of the climax of the day. So I think without it, it's hard to keep you there till the end of the day, till the park closes.
And I just hope that Disney, as they're developing these new shows, right? They just finished developing or redeveloping Fantasmic, and luckily for them, they have a giant amphitheater where you feel comfortable sitting and watching it, and not an issue from any of the viewing angles, that type of thing. Some are better than others, obviously. But I hope when they're redoing Happily Ever After, that they take into account that not everybody wants to be crammed into the middle of the park, and they start allowing different viewing angles and things around so you can be anywhere in the park. So it's now a celebration of the park rather than a movie screening in front of the castle type of thing. And I hope and that's where I'm hoping that Epcot goes along the way too. And then I think it'd be really neat if they could have projections inside the Animal Kingdom once it starts getting dark, where the whole park is celebrating, it comes to life type of thing. I don't know how they do it, but I think that would be really cool. I think that's, rather than a central show, I think the whole park should come alive for like 30 minutes and have a kind of a celebration of the day.
And that's what it feels like at Disneyland with Wondrous Journeys, because they
Mhm.
have it on the Rivers of America. They project onto the facade of It's a Small World. Like, it feels like the whole park is part of the celebration, as to just, rather than just the hub in front of the castle, for sure.
No, I hope that's a trend, but we will see. All right, so last but not least, we're going to get to our top 3 of the day. Ways to manage crowds at the parks. Is a very big planning day. I think this is the one that you put in. This was your idea, so I kind of piggybacked off your idea with the tips and tricks earlier. So I asked you, is this ways to manage it through park ops from the point of view of Walt Disney World, what we hope for them to do? Or is it strategies we do to deal with the crowds? And you said strategies for us. So I'll let you start. Do you want to do your all 3, and then I'll give?
I'll go through my 3.
Okay.
So I didn't thinking about it from the park ops. That maybe we could do that in a future episode. But my thing was like, what are tips and tricks we have for trying to avoid some of the crowds? Because to me, this went along with the whole fireworks showing too, because it's how do you avoid those crowds on Main Street and stuff like that. So the first one I had was just sucking it up and paying for a dessert party or a dining package or a firework cruise or something like that. Obviously, like with Genie Plus, it sucks having to pay for something that you shouldn't have to. but I think for, it can really elevate the experience. I've done dessert parties at Magic Kingdom. I've done, dining packages and a firework cruise at Epcot. And it's not really something we're going to do like every night of every trip or anything like that. But for something different, like, our next time we go down, it will be the first time maybe to see Happily Ever After in a long time. Maybe we'll suck it up and pay for the dessert party or something.
I just want to point right now, if we're doing projections, watching it from Tomorrowland Terrace, you do not get a good view.
Yeah.
The projections and the sound is off.
Yeah.
Right?
I think I would do one of the before or after ones where
that's what you would have to
you go down to the hub gas. But again, these aren't all things that I'm happy to have to do, but I think, if you really want to manage crowds, this is one way you can do it. The other way is to deal with a lesser view location, right? So, for example, watching the parade from Frontierland, the crowd doesn't build like it does on Main Street, and it's still a great experience watching the parade.
I don't think it's any different.
For the fireworks, especially if you've seen the show a couple times, watch it from Fantasyland, from the back of the castle. It's like a really neat experience because some of the fireworks are going off in front of you and some are behind, and it's usually not that crowded. You can go late to Fantasmic, and like you said, maybe you're not straight on, but you could still have a good view and probably separate from the people next to you, not be boxed in. So, especially if it's something you've already seen, like obviously if you've never been and you want to see the fireworks, you want to be on Main Street to see it in front of the castle and stuff like that. But if you've seen things before, there's alternate views of things, and I think that's a way to sort of avoid being smushed in with people.
100%.
And then my last one is, before you go, plan out some break spots for if you need them. If, the kids are starting to kind of lose it, if the parents are starting to lose it, like kind of where can you cool down in the parks? It could be, let's go to Carousel of Progress or something like that. Or it could be, something like that. Know where the baby stations are if you really need to get out of it. Or it could be, let's go out of the park and, ride the monorail for a little bit or walk around, walk over to the boardwalk or something like that, where you can just get away from the crowds and, kind of for each park have one or two things kind of planned out. Like if we need, break glass in emergency, if we need to kind of, everyone's kind of riled up and we need a break, here's our plan.
Yep. 100%. And that'll tie into my third one that I put on my list. These are in no particular order. Excuse me. This is my second one. For me, it's avoiding Magic Kingdom during the middle of the day. And that goes for almost all the parks except for maybe Epcot and Animal Kingdom. Though Animal Kingdom can get a little crowded around between like 11 and 1 type of thing. And these are just my evolving strategies that I've gone with, having down there so much now. It's, Magic Kingdom is so unbearable in the middle of the day, whether you're going in terrible times of the year where the heat is extreme, or it's just, part of the year where you have different parties. And so everybody's going to a certain park a certain day type of thing. You got to think about opportunity cost, right? So what is the cost to you that maybe because it's so busy, you might not have the perfect GD Plus lineup or anything else, or maybe you don't have it in that crowded 4 or 5 hours, let's say between 11 or 12 to like 4 or 5, that time frame. Maybe you get on 3 attractions, but you waited an hour and a half for each one. Maybe you spent extra money just to get out and just have snacks and food, and you weren't expecting to pay for it. But if you left, went back to the resort, you said, okay, I am now quote unquote wasting my money and not being at the park the whole day, but you kind of relaxed in your room, or maybe you grabbed lunch at the resort and it was very kind of relaxing and you're not rushed and you're not part of like a big pack of people, or maybe you went swimming or you want to go kind of just chill in the lobby and they usually have like cartoons playing. You just wanted to hang out there. I mean, there's a myriad of things that you could do, but you go back to the park, maybe you took a shower, maybe you're going back and you're refreshed to kind of go throughout the rest of the evening. And then if you're not watching the fireworks show, you can kind of wander around the park and have lesser crowds there. To me, as I'm evolving as a park tourist, and I've gone from like, we needed to be in the park for 12 hours a day, get all my money's worth and drag everybody around. I even realized back then, in the middle of the day at like 1 or 2 o'clock, we were just exhausted and just kind of sitting around thinking about what we're going to do next because we've been rush. And we've got I think it's valuable to go back to the park. So avoiding parks at midday, with the exception of Epcot, probably, because there's some cool places where you can just kind of relax and chill at Epcot, unless you have small kids that won't sit still. My other one is leveraging GD Plus and stacking for parks, right? So again, this is going back to like you're not at the parks all day long. You're taking breaks. This is specifically very good for Hollywood studios, and I've already talked about this in previous shows. But if you didn't hear them, it's you wake up at 7:00 in the morning, you get your first GD Plus, and then you go back to bed. And then you wake up an hour, 2 hours after park open, and you get your next one. And then by the time 5:00 rolls around, you might have six-ish or so e-ticket attractions all ready to go, and you could just do a blitz. And you've had the whole day to kind of swim and eat and do whatever. Works great if you're going to hop over to Hollywood Studios too. So like leveraging GD Plus to kind of fit your schedule, especially with the modify feature right now, you can really do some really great things with that. And my last one is either spend a lot of money or lose out on a lot of money, right? So spend a lot of money is for these after hour parties that we're just starting to spin up in Hollywood Studios. We've been hearing nothing but good things about all these things. People are basically able to do everything. You get to get in a little bit early. And actually, wait, are you allowed to get in early with an extra hour ticket? Okay.
I think you get in at 7. So in time at Hollywood Studios, you could see Phantasmic, or if it was at Magic Kingdom, you could see the fireworks, and then you get to stay for 3 or 4 hours after.
Okay, so it's like all the other parties and stuff like that.
Yeah.
In the reports right now, they're really limiting the people that go into these things, and you basically there's no lines for everything, but you're spending a premium dollar amount in that, and that might not be reasonable to you and your family. I mean, they're certainly not mine. I'm not spending $600, $700 to go into the parks.
They're definitely tough to pay for it on top of like a week long worth of tickets. Yeah. But if you kind of do them instead of, then you can kind of make it work out. But
absolutely. But on the opposite side of that is, for example, this is usually just basically Magic Kingdom. If you go pay for a ticket for your Magic Kingdom day on the day that they're doing a Not So Scary or a Very Merry Christmas party, there's not a lot of people who go to those parks because you're done at 6. Like you have to leave the park at 6, 7 o'clock, whatever it is. And, you basically can't go in for the evening, which most people are like, no, I want to be there at night and do this, that, and the other. But most people think that way. So if you don't care about some of the nighttime spectaculars and stuff like that in the Magic Kingdom, there's almost nobody at those parks. So it's a very good time to go to those parks. But again, you're paying for a ticket and you don't have the full day that you're able to go. So it's kind of like you're losing money at that point.
Yeah.
But if you don't care, or maybe you're there for a week and you just want one extra Magic Kingdom day and you're not going to be there anyway. And, an extra day of tickets is like, $60, $70 for your family total. It might be a good way to kind of avoid those crowds. So something to think about. There's so many other tips and advice, and I feel like we tend to repeat ourselves because we just did trip reports and this, that, and the other. So these are all things that we've learned and have kind of executed on. But that being said, anything else you want to throw in there, Phil, about ways to manage crowds that might have popped in your head?
No, it's just I think, like you said, I think our trip planning is evolving in how we do things, and I think as you get a little bit older, you do start realizing like there are sometimes paying a little extra is worth it for a better experience. Like could you skip Genie Plus and all the blah, blah, blah? Yeah. But then you're waiting on all these long lines and smashed in with crowds. And, even if it means going less often or, downgrading what resort you stay at or something like that, like sometimes these extras are worth it for a better experience.
Speaking of extras, this is kind of completely random. I thought I had saw that Disneyland reduced the price of Savi's Workshop or the droids. I forget. It's one of those.
Both.
So that got me thinking, Phil, maybe this is a conversation for another day. Does Disney World follow suit with other things getting slightly less expensive? And are we waiting is this going to be part of the rollout for the 100?
It could be, or it could also be that there's just more local / repeat visitors to Disneyland. And how often are you building a lightsaber? Whereas there's more once in a lifetime or once every 5-year people to Walt Disney World. There's more people there that are like, well, this is my chance to build the lightsaber. The other thing I will say is, they lowered the price, but it's after having increased the price. So like,
well, yes,
like the droids started out at $99, then they went up to $149. And I think now they're down to $120 or something. So there's still more than what they used to be, but it is interesting. You rarely see Disney lower prices. Yeah, so it did definitely stand out. Yeah.
That was amazing. Usually if they're going to lower prices, it's part of like a package deal or something else, right? It's not the actual ticket that's dropping.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to see if Disney does some stuff like that. Because, for again, my thing is ticket prices. I'd love to see the tickets get slightly less expensive than they are right now. Because their pricing increases have not followed inflation. It's been like triple inflation rates for like the last decade. So that would be nice. Anyway, that's a point that just popped into my head. I think that might be a topic for next week, Phil, or in a couple weeks from now. Is what are things that Disney can lower the price on that would impress us as Disney World fans? Because that lightsaber, I was going to build one, but the last minute I canceled. I don't want to spend $250 on it. My dad has one and stuff like that. I was playing around with. This is the first time I actually got my hands physically on one. I'm like, this is not worth $250.
Yep.
But anyway, if they lowered some prices, I might start thinking like, maybe.
People love discounts, even if it's
that's it.
after.
All right. So, what is the DBC engagement for next week, Phil?
Yeah, so we were launching it for next week, and this was prompted by Lumpy on Discord, who said, kind of confessed when this story was going around about Sunny Eclipse not being seen at Cosmic Rays, which, for those of you who don't know what it is, that's the animatronic that's in the Cosmic Rays in Tomorrowland in Magic Kingdom. He had never been in Cosmic Rays or seen Sunny Eclipse. So we thought that could be a good opportunity for a Disney engagement. Well, what other Disney confessions are there? What have you never done that is sort of like a staple thing or that most fans have done? Or maybe is there something that everybody loves that you don't seem to like, or just kind of like an opinion of something that's counter to the masses?
Or something like that.
Like a hot take. So what are your Disney confessions?
So I hope everybody participates with this on Discord, so we have some really cool stories for next week. I've already have a couple of them that I might be ashamed to share, but I will confess on a few of them. But that will be for next week, Phil, as we kind of start gathering those things. We hit the 1 hour mark, and I think it was Wheezy on Discord that says, "Don't worry about the 1 hour mark. Keep going on." We appreciate you guys listening and not minding the extra content. But if we did not put the 1 hour mark on us, the show would actually be like 2 or 3 hours long, and that you do not want to listen to 3 hours of just rambling on. So we like to keep them at an hour, but we do appreciate all of you guys that listen every single week to our opinions and topics, et cetera, et cetera. With that being said, guys, have a great week, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone.